Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about wisdom literature, God's order in the matrix of creation. Let's get started. So one of the things to talk about is that we have different canons when it comes to wisdom literature and what exactly is in that wisdom literature. There are 5 books in the Catholic canon that can be referred to it. 2 of these are not in the Hebrew or Protestant canons, but are in the Catholic canons. Wisdom of Solomon and Ben Sirach, also known as Sirach or Ecclesiasticus. The 3 books that are in all 3 canons, Hebrew, Protestant, and Catholic, are Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes. Wisdom and Ben Sirach are 2 of the books that were in the Septuagint, but did not make it into the Hebrew canon because there were no existing copies of them in Hebrew at the time. And also, when the Protestants were making their canon in the 1500s, Wisdom and Ben Sirach were 2 of those books that they took out, 2 of the 7. And so Protestant canons only have Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes. When we talk about wisdom literature, Catholic canons have Wisdom of Solomon, Ben Sirach, Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes. So what exactly is this genre trying to do? It's a different genre. It's separate from the other texts. What's different about it? One of the things is that this genre is found in a lot of different cultures, and the main goal of it is to form the character of young people. It's based mainly in the family setting, just as anyone would be training their kids. This is how to be a good person. This is what to do in life. But because of that, it tends to have a traditional character to it. It refers to sayings that, similar to how the wildlings would speak to Jon Snow in Game of Thrones and saying, it is known, Jon Snow. So this is one of the characteristics of wisdom literature. It has the sense that there is known knowledge, and the idea is that young people need to learn this knowledge in order to survive. It also has to do not only with life skills, but also career skills. A lot of this literature was written for young professionals, young ambassadors, and to tell them how to go about living and acting either in your own professional setting or in a foreign land where you're acting as a state employee. Some of these are basic principles. Listen before you speak. Listen more than you speak, and always think before you speak. These are basic principles that are useful in almost any setting. It also presumes that experience and age matter, that experience and age are a resource that can be given, or the knowledge that is gained during experience and age is something that can be given as a resource to young people. So what are the basic forms within this genre? Basically, almost everything is used by this genre. Sayings, just little sayings, pithy sayings, can be a significant form of wisdom literature. Curses and blessings. Cursed be the one who acts like a fool, blessed be the ones who acts with wisdom. There are also stories about wisdom personified. Wisdom personified as a female emanation of God's wisdom. And teaching about how important wisdom is as opposed to folly, which is also personified as a woman. Anecdotes. A lot of times whenever we try to teach our children how to do things, we'll refer to anecdotes in our own life or anecdotes that we have heard in order to be able to explain the lesson through a story. Biography. A lot of times, just along with anecdotes, which can be short, biography can be a longer example of a life situation or a longer story that says, see this pattern in life, this is how good things or bad things can happen. Debate, going back and forth on a significant point. Prayer, even riddles, and many, many other forms. So what are the basic ideas that are found in this genre that are very important to this genre? One of the things is that human beings have to pass on information to one another. Human beings are not born with information. They have to have it handed on to them. They have to be carefully taught. And in this case, surviving in any sort of setting means that you need to know how bad things can happen and how good things can happen. It also points out the fact that ethics are always relational. You're good to other people because you want other people to be good to you. And this means God to creation, parent to child, everything is relational, not relative, relational. And that means relationships matter. The other thing about wisdom literature is that it views the fact that God created the world with a wisdom and that it runs wisely. So this is a significant worldview that presumes that the world's order is appropriate and proper, and that if you look at the matrix of the world, you can understand God's wisdom because God ordered that world a particular way. There's also a significant sense of authority. It can be it can have a sense of being patrician or parental or pedagogical, but a lot of the proverbs and a lot of the sense have the idea that these are natural reason or pragmatic. In a lot of cases, they ring true and they appeal to self-interest. These ideas are also quite anthrocentric. Wisdom is focused on people and how they understand society. It's focused in particular on people. Although it's looking for the matrix of the world, it's looking at the matrix of the world through the lens and for the benefit of people. It's really a commentary on how to live an appropriate way without rocking the boat. Now we'll see some of the texts try to push the limits a little bit, but for the most part, especially the Proverbs, the goal is don't rock the boat. Why is that? Well, there's a belief in a specific order. There's a specific order in the world, and this creates an emphasis on having a specific order in society as well. It's an honor-shame society. These individuals are going to be living a life in the royal court, but it also has an androcentric perspective and has a negative impact and negative view of women in a lot of cases. Some people point to these texts as having a religious disinterest. As a matter of fact, I think the temple is only referenced a few times in Ecclesiastes. But the text is inherently God-centered. The idea within this is that every aspect in your life, everything that you do, whether you're looking at the sunset, whether you're engaging with people, whether you are working with nature, in all aspects you are dealing with God. Because God has created this world, God has created these relationships, and there is no way outside of that relationship with God. Wisdom literature is quite emphatic about the existence of God and God's importance in everybody's life. So what were the authors like that made this? Very, very, very well-educated. Perhaps the most well-educated of any of the authors of the Bible, other than maybe Luke and the author of Hebrews. These people were literary geniuses. They had the time to write well. They had the jobs to do it as well. Because of this, it's not uncommon that they have an elitist viewpoint. They're a distinct group of wise people, and they distinguish them from fools that they see as being the rest of the world. Oftentimes, these were individuals that had a professional position. Maybe they were individuals in the royal court, and they're trying to give advice to other members of the royal court. The first major book in this setting is Proverbs. This is going to be a mixture of different authors and audiences that is pooled together at some point. Some of this advice is parents to children. Other times it seems like royal ambassadors who traveled or mentors to employees. Why is there such a focus on adultery in Proverbs? It could just be because these were concerns in the ancient world on a regular basis, but also because in a lot of cases these would have been individuals who were ambassadors in another or foreign land, and anytime you have a situation where there is adultery in the state situation, that becomes now an international affair. No pun intended. So the goal was to encourage people not to become in any way compromised, and that's why there's often a focus on adultery in Proverbs. Proverbs uses analogy throughout to get its points across. This is like this is like that. But throughout it presumes this very significant, even secret, but very clear fundamental order in the universe. That God has ordered the world a certain way, and if you can figure that out, you can then live in and figure out what that matrix is. You can live in harmony with that present order in the universe. Why? Because when you have that proper order, when you understand what brings about long life, wealth, and divine approval, you will be able to succeed in life. Again, this is grounded in experience, and that's the sense of the text all the way through. Listen to me, I've been through this. If you do what I say, things will go well for you. That's basically Proverbs. Job has a different angle on it, and Job seems in many ways to be a response to the view of Proverbs and the sense of the book of Deuteronomy, where if you do the law, good things will happen. If you don't do the law, bad things will happen. In Job, you see an example where somebody good is doing what he's supposed to do, but he's harmed anyway. And so this takes on the concept of conventional wisdom. It's worthwhile to note that conventional wisdom is only as wise as those who convene to make it. And the book of Job challenges that concept, especially the tendency for us to say, well, if something bad happened, then you must have done something to deserve it. If something good happened, you must have done something good to deserve it. This is a common ethical and theological algebra that people do whenever they see events going along. And that's one of the reasons, because we are always looking for agency. But Job counters that. Here you have somebody who is a great person who simply becomes an unwitting pawn in a bet between God and Satan. And things that go badly for Job are not at all necessarily his doing. The bulk of the plot is at the beginning, and then you have 40 chapters of debate between Job and his friends. The whole point of the speeches from the friends is to convey that idea of conventional wisdom that has been circulating and remains a common theme in social and human experience. If something bad happened, you must have done something to deserve it. The ending, when God arrives and shows up and tells Job, "Who are you to question me?" and Job says, "Now my eye has seen you," has received a lot of different viewpoints. The final chapters might not be the conclusion. So what exactly is this text trying to get across? It's very possible that what the book of Job is trying to get across is that the only thing that matters in life, or the only thing that really brings about a true understanding of justice, is a spiritual encounter with the divine. And once you have that, all justice is understandable. All injustice is understandable at that point. Nothing can top a spiritual encounter with the divine. And that seems to be what the text is trying to get across. Ecclesiastes follows a lot in the shoes with Job in attempting to challenge the status quo as well. It's very likely not written by Solomon. More likely was written by somebody after the Greeks had taken over in Palestine. It's basically a conversation about life. Somebody writing an essay saying, "Why am I doing this?" Everything is vanity is the common word, or a common phrase. What's the point of this? You do good and bad people succeed. You plant your grain, but then a storm destroys it. What's the point of doing anything in this whole system? And it's an argument that the author makes throughout, basically saying we see people toiling every day and suffering every day, and what's it all for? In the long run, the whole experience reveals to the author what this is all about. On any given Sunday, anything can happen. That's, on the one hand, bad news, because you might get evil even though you don't deserve it. On the other hand, there's a benefit to the any given Sunday perspective. If anything really can happen on any given day, then maybe great things can happen even if you don't deserve it. The uncertainty of life is basically try to live your best and hope that things work out, because you never know. You might even get something that you don't deserve. In the long run, this whole concept is a lot to what the Catholic liberal arts approach is about. The meaning to the pursuit of meaning is the pursuit itself. Sometimes pursuing the knowledge itself is exactly what the whole conversation, the whole topic was about from the beginning.